Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, episode 66 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. It's a special episode. Ep is on vacation today. So, filling in for him, he's a friend of Ep, friend of mine now, and a friend of the show. And he's someone who did something that a lot of us in our athletic careers say or can't say that we did. He played two sports at the collegiate level for one of the best athletic institutions ever. Florida State University. He played both football and baseball. He's the owner of 3D Sports Performance and, of course, a new friend of the show. Please welcome my guest co-host this week, Dominic Robinson. Dominic, how's it going, man?
What's up, man? Excited to do this. Excited to reach and talk to your audience, and let's get this thing going.
Yeah. Well, I want to just get a little bit of your background first here. Again, two-sport athlete. And now you're a coach. You do travel ball stuff, which we'll get into later on in the show because there's a lot of shenanigans that Ep and I have talked about on this show that go on with travel ball. So we'll talk about that. But just a little bit about your background, how you were able to do what you did, play two sports at Florida State University.
Yeah. So I grew up, playing and doing everything, just obsessed. I've been obsessed with sports my whole life, and never really loved baseball, always liked it, but I really just played because everyone else, was going on to the next sport and they all were going to play baseball. So I went and played baseball. Grew up in Southern California, so highly competitive baseball environment, obviously, and never really realized how good I was because I didn't love the game. I just was playing it and I was an athlete. And it wasn't until I started being recruited for football, and then other, football schools were also asking me, to play baseball. I'm like, wow, I never even thought I was good at this thing. And then I started to being compared or grouped with these guys that I thought were phenomenal baseball players. Yeah. And I thought they were way better than me. And once I started to realize I was in that group, it's kind of a really cool thing. Arizona State at the time, which is a big, huge powerhouse. At the time when Arizona State offered me for baseball, that was when it really hit home.
Yeah.
Because
and that was Pat Murphy, correct?
That was Pat Murphy, and Dennis Wyrick was the guy that I idolized growing up. He was a shortstop for Bishop Lamont High School, which is huge private school down in Southern California. And we played them when I was a freshman, and I remember they announced him and they, listed his accolades. It was All-American and, baseball this, baseball. And then they started listing his football accolades also. It was All-American this, it was All-State this. And wow, that's really, really cool. And that was kind of the first time that I said, you know what, I'd like to chase that a little bit. And then, I was lucky enough, or fortunate enough 3 or 4 years later to kind of have the same list of accolades that Dennis had. But that was a guy that I idolized growing up, and never really thought it was realistic, to be honest with you. I just, that was just something that I wanted to chase. I was a highly driven, young athlete. So, showed up at Florida State, didn't really go there to play baseball or really think about the fact that, Mike Martin was one of the greatest coaches of all time, baseball coaches of all time. And they were pursuing me. The players were very open with me in study halls and things. Hey man, you should come out. We'd love to have you. And I didn't really think anything of it. And as the season started to wind down, the football season, I actually started to go. I had a bunch of friends that were on the softball team, Florida State softball team, and they would be going to practice on Sundays and or just to by themselves. And so I went, and actually I was hitting in the softball cage with the softball bat. I was hitting softballs. It was the first time I picked up a bat since June, when my season ended, my high school season ended. And I'm swinging the softballs and I'm trying to hit underhand softball pitches to try to see if can I actually do this? Like I hadn't swung. I hadn't touched a glove. I didn't have a bat, like none of that stuff. I did that for about a month and a half, hitting in the Florida State softball cage with nobody else knowing. The baseball team didn't know, football didn't know I was doing it on Sundays very discreetly. with the girl named Jessica Vanderlinden, who was an All-American at Florida State, and I believe she's actually a national team coach now for Puerto Rico or something like that. But
let me ask you this, if I may, just cut in here. The audience might be wondering this. I am too. You played for. Let me get this straight now. Again, this is another accolade that a lot of people can't say they did. You played for Bobby Bowden,
correct,
and Mike Martin, two of the best coaches in their respective sports of all time at the collegiate level. Yeah. So I have to ask. We'll dive into this a little more as well. But what was it like playing for Bobby Bowden? What was it like playing for Mike Martin?
I will tell you this, as amazing as they are as coaches.
Yes.
I can't understate how special they are as coaches, that they are tremendous, had a tremendous understanding of the game, of the tactics of the game, of the technical aspects of the game, and the ability to relate to the players and to get their messages across.
Yeah.
As incredible as they are at those things, you would probably have to multiply it by 10, the amazing human beings that they are. You're talking about two of the greatest human beings that ever walked the earth, in my opinion, based on who I've come in contact with.
So not just coaches, but just people in general. Not
just coaches,
right.
Not just coach, not just, to me, Bobby Bowden isn't just the greatest college football coach.
Yeah.
He is, to me, is maybe the greatest human being to ever be called coach.
And what made him that way? What made him? Was it the empathy? Was it teaching you life lessons? That when you're in college, you're alone, you're not with your parents. So you learn different things from those coaches.
The list for me would go on and on and on. It's a list that goes, what really solidified it for me was probably about 10 to 12 years ago. Coach Bowden is speaking at a convention, at the AFCA convention in Dallas. I had just moved to Dallas. The convention usually has somewhere between 20,000 and 30,000 people there, coaches there, all coaches. Coach Bowden speaks in this huge ballroom. It's packed out. People are standing, probably 30,000 people are there to listen. I would imagine thousands of those people there were former players, to think about how long Coach Bowden coached, and how many guys are now coaching. That number would be astonishing.
Sure.
So I'm assuming there were thousands, not just hundreds, but thousands of those guys that are listening to that message. Coach Bowden speak, were all former players or had been impacted by him in some way, shape, or form, recruited by him, played for him, played against him. They all have this relationship. Coach Bowden finishes speaking, and of course he knocks it out the park, because that's what he does. The guy can speak. He could sell water to a well. The guy can it's amazing, his ability to connect with you. In a room of 30,000 people, you'll feel like Coach Bowden's talking to you specifically.
Yeah.
It's incredible. His ability to both teach the life lesson, tell funny jokes, connect it back to something that relates to the time, to the current time, and the future and the past, all in one little anecdote, joke that he's telling. It's unbelievable. Well, he finishes speaking, he knocks it out the park. I'm walking back to my car through this lobby of the Dallas, this is a Gaylord hotel, so huge hotel.
Sure.
He's being escorted out by security. There's probably 4 or 5 security guys around him. Where our paths are crossing, I'm stopping to let him pass. I'm not thinking that we're going to talk or anything like that. I'm just stopping to let him pass. And people are, swarming him from all sides. He stops, tells his security stops. He grabs me, pulls me in, gives me this huge hug. He then proceeds to ask about my mom, call her by her first name, my sisters, ask me how they're doing, remembers where they live, are currently living. He then begins to talk to me about what my mom, the sweet potato pie that my mom made when he visited me when I was 16 years old in my little Daisy apartment, my little 2-bedroom apartment that I grew up in, that I lived for 20 years growing up. Now, this is a man who, again, he just finished speaking to 30,000 people. He's recruited hundreds of thousands of kids. He's sat in many living rooms. For him to stop in that moment, see my face. Now, mind you, he also hadn't seen me for probably about 10 years. And I was not Deion Sanders. I was not Peter Warwick. I was not Chris Winkie or Charlie Ward, right?
Sure, yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
That you remember Charlie Ward's mom and dad. That you remember what Charlie Ward's mom made. He was a Heisman winner and a national champion. Yeah. I was just a guy. I was just a guy that played for him in a long list of hundreds of All-Americans. I was a guy who played and was, an average football player at Florida State. That just blew me away. That he was able to remember my mother, remember her name, what she made, sitting in my living room. He was able to call out, he was able to recall these things. Now, this is an 80-something-year-old man that hasn't seen me in 10 years. And I just thought, and I hate to draw the story out even longer. So then we connect, we exchange information. He gives me his email address. He's leaving to go on vacation with his wife, with Miss Ann. Yeah. They're going to Hawaii. I shoot him an email later on that night. Hey, Coach, it was unbelievable seeing you. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. I can't believe you even recognized me, stopped your security to talk to me, and then stood there and talked to me while there's, thousands of other people that wanted your attention in that moment. You're being rushed back to your room. That was an incredible moment for me. And, thank you. And I had just got into coaching at that time. I was a young college coach at the time. I'm sending him an email thinking, and again, now mind you, this is Coach Bowden at this point is at the height of his public speaking thing. He just retired. Yeah. So
this wasn't too long ago. This was just a few years ago.
This was, like I said, this was probably about 10 years ago. It was right after he finished coaching. And right when I was just getting into coaching college football. And so he was speaking everywhere. Like he was on a tour, a world tour. Thank you so much. It was great seeing you. I'd like to stay in contact. Thinking he'll go on vacation. One of his handlers will get the email. I'll get a response back in a week or two or whenever. He emails me himself, emails me back while he's on vacation with Miss Ann. Yeah. And I can promise you, he has at least that night, he probably had at least 100 requests for speaking engagements. For him to sift through all of those emails, find my personal email, he responds back, and again, responds back with the most, mind-blowing response of recollection of the things that I'd done. Man, I still remember the plays that you made against Florida. You were such a big part of who we were, and I'm so thankful for what you're doing now as a coach, and all these things that were personal to me. He wasn't just scatter shooting the whatever they're called, the reply to message, the factory reply to message.
Yeah, it wasn't generic at all. It was personal.
No, it was personal, that he was actually recalling the things that I had done at Florida State, things that I'm currently doing, like I said, family members, things like that. And that, at that point, that really, really called me to the carpet in terms of who I am and who I was going to be as a coach. Yeah. Because if Coach Bowden, who has coached umpteen NFL stars, stars, not just guys that were good, guys who are in the Hall of Fame, and thousands and thousands of 5-star recruits and blah, blah, blah. If he can, at 75, 80 years old, in a ballroom of 30,000 people, minutes after speaking, if he can pick me out of a crowd
Yeah.
and then recall what my mom made for my recruiting visit, or for his recruiting visit to my house, and ask me how my sister is doing, and then get my email and reply to my email the very next day. Who am I going to be as a coach?
Right. So it's taught you lessons
Am I the guy who's too busy? Yeah. Am I the guy who's too busy to reply to your email if you're a player who wants to come play for my school at the time when I was coaching college? Or am I the guy who's now I'm running a baseball program, and some player who wants to come play with us, or some parent is trying to reach out to me about what they should do with their kid? Am I too busy in my life that I can't shoot a message? Yeah. Am I too busy to remember a player's name who played for me?
Yeah. Or reply back to a guy trying to do a podcast.
Right. Yeah. No. You joke, but honestly, I think about these things daily. When somebody shoots me a text, when somebody sends me a message, when a player asks me for help with something, when I don't reply within 24 hours, I think about Coach Bowden.
Yeah.
I honestly do.
Let me ask you this.
I think about what I'm doing and who I want to be going forward. You know, and I have a similar thing with Coach Martin.
So I was going to say with Bobby Bowden and Coach Martin, I was going to ask this. What was the biggest difference you think between the two? Because obviously I'm sure they have a lot of similarities in terms of communication, in terms of their sharp memory, their brain, whatever. But what was the biggest difference in playing for both of those guys that you saw?
That is a really phenomenal question. And the answer is, I don't know that they're not the same person.
Okay.
Except
they coach different sports, but outside of that, at the core of them, they're not very different.
I honestly, as well as I've got to know both of them throughout the years, both as a player and then after my playing days as an NFL player, and then coming back as a coach and a guy who's trying to get players recruited to those schools, more so for baseball, and having a relationship with Coach Martin and meet his son. They just were very, very, very similar. There's not much difference between Coach Martin and Coach Bowden. They were really the same people. They both had this incredible acumen for their sports. They both were incredibly caring about their players. I would say Coach Martin is a little bit more country, which is kind of crazy to say because Coach Bowden is pretty country, about as country as they come. But they were very similar. They were very similar in the way that they got their messages across. They were very similar in their ability to stay even keel and level throughout everything. Whether that we were playing the worst that we've ever played, that he's ever seen, or we were, number 1, 2, or 3 in the country. They always were the same. And they were the same when I was done playing. They were the same when I was being recruited. I don't know that they're different people, man. It's almost like they were both created in the same lab. And one just, when the split happened on the conveyor belt, one went the baseball way and the other went the football way, because they were very, very similar in a lot of ways, in more ways than I can think of.
So in my intro, I kind of cut you short because you also played in the NFL, which I did know. And we'll get to that in just a second. But I wanted to highlight the fact that you played 2 sports in college, because and I played college baseball, so I know how it is with study hall and missing classes. And that was double for you. But you also played in the NFL for a brief time as well. So what was it like for you playing in the NFL? You hear the great, you hear the good, you hear the really bad, and you hear the horror stories. Can you just document your experience a little bit about playing in the NFL and how that has shaped you today in the coaching world?
It was really interesting because it's a lot different than I think. I try to tell, kind of explain to my players a lot of experiences that are probably perceived differently, through the average player or the person, or maybe even the very high level athlete who hasn't reached that plateau yet.
Right.
there were some parts that were incredible.
Like what?
You know, standing behind Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt.
Yeah.
And then Orlando Pace was an offensive lineman for us there. So you're talking about 3 Hall of Famers, and Marshall Faulk was on that roster also.
Sure.
So
and what year was this? I'm sorry to cut you off.
Guys, this would have been 2005.
Okay.
So this was right after they were very, very good.
Yeah.
And Kurt Warner took them and was the MVP, I want to say 2 years prior to that. Maybe got hurt the next year. And then Mark Bolger took over in my first year.
Okay.
And so my kind of funny or anecdotal story about the level that it takes to be a professional athlete was we're in a one-on-one period. I run a dig route. We complete the route. I catch it, tuck, get upfield. My whole life, that was a good rep. Right. That wasn't even just a good rep. That was a great rep. My whole life, my whole football life, it was good. We won. I caught the ball. I possibly could have scored, blah, blah, blah. I'm jogging back to the huddle, and I can see Mark Bolger is distraught. He's like really mad. He's very upset.
Yeah. And
he's going, my bad. And I'm thinking, first of all, as I'm jogging back, I'm a rookie, right? So I'm thinking I screwed up. I ran the wrong route. Sure. I did something. I wasn't deep enough. That tends to be the rookie mistake because we don't get our depths on things. And he's apologizing to me, and I'm like befuddled. I'm going, what in the world? Well, I wore number 18. He goes, I wanted to hit you on the cleft of the 1.
Wow.
And I hit you in the hole of the 8.
Yeah.
And this was like in spring. This was like mini camp, the first mini camp.
Yeah.
And that was where it was like, oh, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like this is insane.
Yeah.
When a quarterback is so angry that he missed by, that had to have been 6 inches maybe.
Yeah.
And we won. Like that rep, well, that was a win. Yeah. He was it was like he threw an interception. Like not just an interception, it's like he threw a pick 6. He was really upset.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, the level of detail at this level it's through the roof. It's way different than I've ever experienced.
Yeah.
That was crazy. The other part of it, I will tell you, I thought that my practices, my training, everything that I did in college was much more difficult than my practices in the NFL. And that part was very interesting. Mm-hmm. The defense that I played against in college, the guys that I went against in college, Brian McFadden, Antonio Cromartie, Patrick Watkins, those guys challenged me far beyond the guys that I had to go against in the NFL, which obviously that's very interesting, as you would think it'd be a lot more difficult. But the Florida State defense, that got you ready for Sundays, at that time, the guys that I went against. So that was interesting. But going back, I didn't finish saying that having Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt to play behind, these guys are Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
That part, that challenged me a lot more than the defense that I was going against, because these guys were literally geniuses in terms of wide receiver play. I tell people all the time, Torrey would wear sleeves in camp. It's August in St. Louis, and he would get through a whole practice without sweating. He was so good at wide receiver play. He would never lose. He never lost the one-on-one the whole time that I was there for a whole year. He never once lost. He would never lose, but he would never sweat. It was never hard because he was so mentally ahead of everyone else on the field. And Marshall was this way too. They were so far ahead of everyone mentally that they didn't have to run 4-3. They didn't have to max out on their physical capabilities to win. And they realized that, hey, if I can beat you mentally and I can conserve my energy, my muscles.
Let me ask you. I want to ask you this. when you learn that lesson that with the guys who are at the top of their profession, like a Marshall Faulk, like an Isaac Bruce, there's baseball guys like that as well. But in this case, with Isaac Bruce, or was it Torrey Holt? I'm sorry. It was Isaac Bruce. Both of them didn't break a sweat.
No, Isaac had worked a little bit harder than Torrey, and Isaac was older. Isaac was 18 years in when I got there.
Yeah.
18 years in.
But but it really shows you, is this what you try to teach your kids when you're coaching? How mentally how in tune mentally and ahead you have to be able to get ahead and to be one of the best athletes that you can, at least as good an athlete as you possibly can be. Is that something you teach and profess to them?
Yeah, there's no question, because typically with our program, especially the baseball arm of 3D, our guys are already good. We have some of the best players in the country. Their problem isn't their physical ability, or I shouldn't say their what they need to improve. And it's not that they don't need to get better; they don't need to increase, their ability as physical players. Yeah. But where they really have a huge gap tends to be the knowledge of what they do and why to do it. And so I spend a lot more time working and thinking about how to get that message through than I do, hey man, your exit speed's 95, we got to get you to 100. Yeah. My guys are going to exit balls 100 on their own, on their natural physical ability. Yeah. But if I can't get you to understand that in a 2-0, 2-1, 3-1 count, you can't be late, then I don't really care that I can get you from 100 to 102, because you're going to swing and miss in 2-0 count or 2-1 count. Yeah. Because you don't understand, you don't understand counts, or you don't understand what the pitcher's trying to do. So do you subscribe to the Epstein hitting theories? I mean, we always talk, obviously this is a hitting podcast. We're doing something a little bit different this week, but have you and Jake collaborated a lot about hitting? Because you guys are friends. Oh yeah. Jake and I owe Jake everything in terms of who I am and what I've become on the baseball side. He took me in when I literally knew nothing. I didn't know what the hell I was doing out here, man. I was, I was a football guy that I knew very early on that I could not coach once I realized I was going to coach, which I didn't want to do. I never wanted to coach my kids. And I definitely did not ever think I'd be a baseball coach. Once I realized that this is what I was going to do, I also knew I cannot be the coaches that coached me from a baseball standpoint. I knew I had so much to learn, and I could not sit on a bucket, yell at kids for pulling outside pitches and tell them they got to go the other way, and just spend an hour hitting lesson telling kids, hey, you got to hit the ball the other way. I knew I didn't want to be that guy. That was one of the very first things. So once I realized that, that's when I went to Jake and said, hey, look, I want to get into this thing. I realized hitting is the most fun part. I'm coaching baseball. Yeah. And before I learn anything, I need to learn how to teach kids how to hit, because hitting is what's going to keep kids in the game the longest. And then as I started to build, and it took probably about 2 or 3 years with Jake, building up, my knowledge and my feel for that, and teaching, and a lot of mistakes, and I'm sure I messed up a lot of kids on the way. And then got really good. And then I dove into the throwing side, and I really connected with Alan Yeager. And, one of the first things that I did with all of this stuff was I would just go sit with guys. And if they would let me ask questions, I would ask questions. And some guys I would just observe for days, weeks, months at a time. And I would just see what they do, see how they teach. And I realized that I can get really good at this. There's a lot of guys out here that are actually stealing money. They're doing hitting lessons. I guess you've seen what's on Twitter and what's on Instagram. Yeah, right. Yeah. So I realized, whoa, a lot of these guys are stealing. They don't really know what they're doing. Yeah. If I just learn, and I'm a good teacher, and communicator, I can I can make a lot of difference in people's lives. I can really change some lives here. And there's a difference between myself and the other people who have a hold on the market. So when I moved here to Arizona, that was kind of the big thing that people would say to me was, man, that market's really oversaturated. Yeah. And I was really concerned about that. And then I realized once I got here that it isn't oversaturated with what I do. It is oversaturated.
Yeah.
But most of the people that are doing it here aren't doing it the way that we are doing it at 3D. And so Jake, I owe Jake everything in terms of baseball, because without hitting, a lot of my guys would have probably gone in a different direction. Yeah. And they would have gone to these bad hitting coaches or hitting instructors or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. And then they probably would have hated baseball, and they probably would have played something else, or they would have just been bad baseball players.
Right.
And in the beginning, we sucked. To just being honest, we weren't very good when we first started. We were 1-17 when our very first season, and I'm more proud of that group than I've been proud of anyone else, because the very next year we were 24-10. And again, I owe a lot of that to Jake, because the first year we didn't hit, the second year we hit. Yep. It's very simple. The game is very simple. And if you can hit, then the game is a lot of fun. And I realized that. And so I just dove deep into the hitting stuff early on. I mean, this is probably 10 or 11 years ago. Mm-hmm. And Jake was the first guy. He was the guy. I don't know if I Googled him. I have no clue how I found him. Yeah. But somehow I found Epstein hitting, and gosh, I can't tell you how much I owe to him, because he's taken a lot of my probably annoyingly novice questions in the beginning, because I didn't know anything. I only knew the bad stuff that had been taught to me my whole life. Yeah. That was all I knew. The guy sitting on the bucket tossing, that's what I knew hitting instruction to be. So he helped me mold and become, a forward thinker, an outside the box thinker from the beginning, and then taking his stuff and then molding it with what I was doing on the performance side. Yeah. And it just became this beautiful marriage.
But it seems like you also like to try to keep things as simple as possible to teach your kids as well. And I think parents listening, they see hitting gurus out there using these big words and confusing a lot of people just to sound smart. And Ep and I have talked about that on this show many, many times. We like to try to keep things simple here. I'm sure you're the same way. What message do you have to send to parents as a coach of a successful program, former professional athlete, collegiate athlete, about ignoring the hitting gurus, finding the right hitting coach, whoever that may be, and trying to get their kid better while keeping it as simple as possible without using these big words like a femur or a hip hinge or whatever other things are out there that people use that I can't stand?
Yeah, I think the first thing that you just try to do is find someone that your kid has a connection with, just period. Yeah. Like, does he like to spend that 30 minutes or hour with them? Mm-hmm. Or does he look at it as something, does he look at it as a job or a chore? Mm-hmm. If he's not 16, 17, 18, he doesn't need a job. He doesn't need another chore. He has enough chores around the house and going to school every day and getting homework done. He has enough of that stuff. Mm-hmm. This game should be that. Mm-hmm. And so I've never heard of a game that you don't enjoy, right? So if he doesn't enjoy going and spending time with that hitting guru, instructor, whatever you want to call him, get the heck out. Go find something else. There's so many, the kids today, they have so many options. Many options. That's the difference between my generation and the generation that I now coach is we had way less options than what they have today. And if they're not enjoying what they're doing, they're going to find something else. They're going to go find something else.
And just for context, how old are the kids that you coach? Just so people know.
So they're high school age typically. Okay. I started the group that I started with, they were 9 and 10. And they're now that class is 20. It was the class of 2021 and class of 2020. So some of them graduated last year, and some are graduating or graduated this summer. So I typically work with high school age. I do, and then I do a high school prep, so 7th and 8th grade, approaching the high school age. And that's probably the biggest, I feel like, most important thing that we do is the work that we did with that high school prep group. So yeah, it's very simple, man. When the kid walks out from the lesson, how did you have fun?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's very simple. Oh yeah, that was fun. Okay, what'd you guys do? We did this, this, and this. Okay, what'd you learn?
Yeah.
This, this, this. All right, we'll come back tomorrow, or we'll come back, 2 days from now, whatever it is. He walks out. Did you have fun? Yeah. Okay, that body language kind of tells me something. Okay, what'd you do? All right, I don't really remember. Well, what'd you learn?
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, you probably need to look at something else.
Right.
Because there needs to be a purpose to everything you do. Because again, you can only budget so much time. That the kids only have so much budget, so much time to budget. And so much time on their plate. So if you're going to spend it, with the guy instead of invest it,
mm-hmm.
then you're wasting. Don't spend your time. Invest your time. Go to someone who's going to teach you what you need to learn so that you could be a varsity level player. That was the biggest thing when we started. Was I'm not trying to create Division I athletes. I'm not trying to create all-stars or all-Americans or pro bowlers or blah blah blah. Our very first thing is I want you guys to get in front of your varsity coach when you're in 9th grade, and when he asks you to carry out a task,
mm-hmm.
that you understand what he's asking you to do, and know or be able to carry out the task in the manner that he asked you to carry it. And that's it. Like, to me, that was everything. And then once they became varsity level players, as they all did. Then it was, now when you show up on a college campus, I want the college coach to then say to you, hey, I need you to get this, this, and this done. And you to go, yep, I've done that before, coach. I'm good. I got that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Coach D-Rob, he had me ready for that. We've been doing that. We've been trying to build that skill for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it down. I haven't mastered it, but I at least am comfortable with what you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what you want to find in a hitting coach and a hitting instructor and everything. I'm talking about hitting, catching, throwing, pitching, athleticism, strength training, all of that is, did you have fun? What did you take away from?
Mm-hmm.
And if you feel like you're getting something, then okay, it's an investment. And if that means I got to pay $100,000 or $3, I'm totally good with that, because the lessons that are learned from this sport and all the other sports, they're invaluable.
Yeah.
So if I can have a little bit more fun, which fun comes with success, because I get better,
mm-hmm.
I get a little bit better, have a little bit more fun, have a little bit more success, I'm going to come back the next day. And that's what we're seeking. I think that's what we should be seeking as coaches, as instructors, as teachers. It's like, hey, man, let's make sure we have a little bit more fun today. Take something from it. And
mm-hmm.
if I can take something from it that I can apply tomorrow, then I'll have a reason to come back tomorrow, because I want to chase that feeling.
So be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast, everybody. New episodes every Monday, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
If you have any
like
questions,
and subscribe right there, the button.
If you have any
button.
Well, there's buttons on YouTube. There's buttons on Apple, Spotify,
yes,
everywhere.
Yes.
So be sure to like. Dominic's liked and subscribed, so you should too. Our new Dominic Robinson, our new, I guess you can be like our new fill-in co-host at this point, right? If that wants to go on vacation. And send us your questions to jimbopodcast21 at gmail.com. I got to go back to something really quick. Nick Saban once said this after he got done coaching in the NFL. He said that it was like coaching in a factory in the NFL, where in college it was more pure. I don't know how, I guess with the new ruling with the NCAA and the Supreme Court, I don't know how pure, so to speak, it is now with guys now being able to make money. But he did say that college coaching and collegiate athletics in general was more pure. Did you feel that same way when you went from college football and college baseball? You got the college collegiate sports in the purest sense. When you went on to the NFL, was it more of kind of not so much a job, but it was more structured, like you're kind of working almost in a factory? You punch the time clock, you punch out, and when you're done, you go home, where in college, that doesn't really exist.
Yeah. There's a lot more of a support system. College just feels a lot more like a family. We're kind of all working for we're working for a bigger entity, but it's all in the same direction.
Sure.
When you get to the NFL, you are, or professional baseball or basketball, or whatever, you are the entity, and the decisions that you make are for you, period.
Yeah.
And then the consequences of that may affect the bigger entity, which would be the NBA, the NFL, whatever. Mm-hmm. But you are making those decisions based on you are the business, and that's a strange feeling, man. And it goes, I mean, the way that it flips on you so quickly, it's very hard. I mean, I would imagine for especially basketball guys, the basketball guys that I have relationships with, mm-hmm. that's a very tough thing for them to go from this family. I mean, as you can essentially go in a year and a half, so we just had Nico Mannion here at Pinnacle High School. And within a year and a half, he went from the ultimate family deal, which is high school mm-hmm. sports, to, college for 6 months. Mm-hmm. And within 18 months, he's now a Golden State Warrior. Mm-hmm. And you go from, again, this full family environment mm-hmm. to I am my own family. Mm-hmm. I don't have, there's no one around me that I really have full support from. So it's a really interesting, it's a very tough dynamic for guys to navigate, and staying close with the people who were with you when you weren't, that business, I think is paramount.
I take it almost as if NFL players, NBA players, somewhat Major League Baseball, but there's a farm system and the dynamic is a little bit different. Same thing with hockey, mm-hmm. but with football and NFL players and basketball players, I take it as their former college coaches are almost like, to a regular student, former professors who had a huge impact on their lives. And now they're working for a different kind of boss that they may or may not like. And it's almost the approach of, and I've spent now 10 years plus in professional baseball, and so I've been around professional athletes, kind of know the mindset a little bit. It's almost as if the mindset is, I love the work, but I hate the job. And you hear that from a lot of people who are really enjoying their careers. I love the work, I hate the business, and I hate the job. Is that something that you can equate to going from college football to playing in the NFL?
I think so. The only thing I will say is that, you don't have to hate the job. You don't
or you hate the business. I probably
don't have to. Yeah. And you don't have to hate the business. The important part, or the hard part, is being able to understand and separate the two, and understand the business has its place. Mm-hmm. And I think we are doing a better job of educating our athletes on that. Mm-hmm. And I think 10 years ago, we did a poor job, or a poorer job, of educating guys, and we just sort of expected them to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing so many horror stories of guys not figuring it out and going down these really negative paths. And so I think we're doing a better job of creating a system for them. And I think baseball does a phenomenal job, or a much better job than the other sports, because of the minor league system, which has its warts and has its downfalls, and there's a lot of kids who get caught up in that system, and it's not the best thing for them. So I think we're doing a better job of making it so that we don't have to hate the business. Mm-hmm. The truth is, though, that, I mean, there's going to be parts of the business you're always going to hate, because mm-hmm. just like I said, the individual entity will always put itself first, and eventually that coach is going to move on, and he may move on without you.
Yeah.
It's not the same, that organization may move on, and it may move on without you. And so if you can understand that going into it, and have a better perspective going into it, and understand that it's not college anymore, or high school, because even now college is sort of getting that way. College athletics is taking on a more pro model. in terms of the coaches and them moving and the organizations. And that was sort of my big issue with Florida State, was it moved to that model.
Yeah.
When Coach Bowden left, they moved from sort of a family model to a business model. And that sort of hurt me, because I knew what that family model meant to me and what it did for me. So if you understand that in advance, I think that helps tremendously. If I can understand that, hey man, these guys, they're going to do what's best for them.
Yeah.
And that may not include me being a part of it, or that may include me being a role that I don't necessarily love. That's a big part of what I feel like I do right now with working with youth kids, is get them to understand that you will not always have the role that you've had your whole life.
Before we move on to travel ball, I want to ask you this, because you have a lot of experience playing with some great athletes that moved on to the NFL level, and of course playing behind Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, with Marshall Faulk, Mark Bulger, and you mentioned that story earlier with Mark Bulger, Mr. Perfection, sounds like, which I think maybe I'm wrong about this, but it seems like a lot of quarterbacks, the great ones, the good to great ones, have that OCD like Mark Bulger did with that example. What are some examples of what makes some of what separates athletes from being good to like a Tom Brady level or Peyton Manning level type, Isaac Bruce level type great that you see?
Yeah, I think it's just the ability to compartmentalize, which meaning the good has its place, the bad has its place, the great has its place, and you can put those all in their boxes.
Yep.
But continue to have a acute focus on, what do I need to do to be a little bit better tomorrow?
Yeah.
And the ability to, when I was coaching at Drake University, a kid named AJ Spitz said this, and the whole room just was like, whew. And he said, if you're too big to do the small things, then you're too small to do the big things. And so the ability, I think the elite high-level athletes, I played with Anquan Bowden, was this way. There's no detail that was too small. Like, there was nothing that, I'm just going to leave that trash laying around.
Yeah.
I'm just going to stay up late tonight. I'm just going to cut this one lift short.
Right.
I'm gonna go short of the line, or have my toe on the line for just this one rep. Like, everything matters. The ability to take the mindset that everything matters and nothing is too small to do it correct. I think that's where I always say to my guys, like, the truth lies in the margins. At some point, everybody's good. Especially, and I have it with my teams all the time. I never look at my lineup card and go, okay, I got these 4 bad players, so I can put them over here, and I got these good players I can put. I look at my lineup and I go, okay, I got 15 good guys. So where does the truth lie? It's somewhere in the margins. Who's going to get on and off the field the way that looks 3D?
Yeah.
Who's going to look the ump in the eye and shake his hand and say, hey, I'm so-and-so. Nice to meet you, Blue. Who's going to pick up the dugout after we just lost 10-0 because he knows we got to represent ourselves in a certain way? Right. The truth lies in the margins. It's the little things, and I almost hate calling them little things. It's more like it's the details that makes the difference between good to great.
Yeah.
And those are the guys, I'll kind of, if I can tell another story. Do you mind if I tell the story?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I mean, we can go as long as you'd like here. So you have some good stories, which is.
Yeah. So Anquan Bowden was a wide receiver at Florida State when I was there.
Sure.
I came in as a cornerback. So I was a freshman. Back then we used to have freshman camp. So I got murdered during freshman camp, because freshman camp was it was 18 guys or 20 guys, because it was just the recruits, no walk-ons, no upperclassmen. It's just us, but we're doing a normal practice. Like it wasn't, it was a 2-hour grind of a practice with no breaks, no subs. You know, there was no first team, second team, third team. It's just us.
Yeah.
So so I got murdered during freshman camp. It was horrible. You know, Southern California kid. I'm in the Florida humidity. You know, you know, I'm one of 2 cornerbacks in my class. I think we had 5 defensive backs and 2 corners. Yeah. And so we're just going rep after rep after rep after rep. Well, then the varsity guys come in. This is after 2 or 3 days. And this is back then, you actually had 2-a-days, then a 3-a-day special teams practice, and then a 2-a-day. That was our freshman camp.
That's brutal.
We did all of that. So that's 7 practices, right? Before the upper class men, mind you, I'm 17. I just turned 18 in June. It's end of July, August. I just turned 18. And now the men show up.
Yeah. And
so first day, we're lining up. We're in team period. So we're at the end of practice, like period 19, 20, 21 is team. I see Anquan he's in the huddle. I'm at corner, and I see them make the call, and I'm trying to assess everything.
Sure.
I'm taking in all information. I see them make the huddle call, and I see his face light up, and I see him look at me, and he's like, hell yeah. Like he was like a shark, and he saw chum in the water, and he looks over at me, and he looks back at the other wideouts who are standing behind. Yeah. And he's like, hey, watch this. I'm going against the kid. You know, this kid is All-American. You know, I was the number 2 player in the country. Like I knew right away, like, oh, he's about to bomb, right? He's going deep.
Yeah.
I line up, ball snapped. He gives me a good shake, acts like he's going to run around me. He then takes his helmet and sticks it dead up under my chin, drives me about 15 yards up on this little hill. There was a hill on the side of practice, and he dumps me on the side of the hill and just kind of holds me down as the whole team just erupts. And, you know, and he jogs back to huddle with the workman-like attitude and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that was a rude awakening for me, but it's a really great teaching moment in that, again, every little detail matters. I'm thinking with my little freshman brain that if a wide receiver gets a call in the huddle that he likes, it must be a bomb, right? It must be a deep route, a post, a corner, post corner, a go route, blah, blah, blah. This is one of the best wide receivers in the next draft. You know, that summer he was going to get drafted, or that spring he was going to get drafted.
Right.
And it meant something to him to show the team that, hey, like, I don't need to bomb this freshman to show dominance in this game. There's other things that I can do, a part of this team, a part of this game, that will prove my dominance, you know, in this moment. And so that's another one of my, you know, every detail matters. Every little thing. You don't just have to score the touchdown. You don't have to hit the 3-run bomb to be a great teammate, to be a great and an asset to your coach. You can lead in a way that has nothing to do with scoring, striking guys out, scoring touchdowns, you know, scoring points. You know, Draymond Green is kind of that way in basketball. You know, there's ways to be great that don't catch headlines. There's ways to be great that don't get your name in the paper. That there's ways to be great that, frankly, might not get you recruited. You know, and but that doesn't mean that it's any less great. You know, just because you didn't get the name in the paper, or for the kids now, just because Perfect Game doesn't tweet your you know, your 2-run bomb, or your the fact that you touch 90, you can be a great human being, a great person, a great athlete, a great player, and a great asset to your team without Perfect Game posting about you, or Prospect Wire, or any of these other, you know, companies that are, you know, running the Twitter game.
I was going to ask you now.
That's my Anquan Bowden sort of, you know, one of the lessons that I got to be taught early on, is that you can be great, and it doesn't mean that you have to have the typical shining,
Mm-hmm.
stats or whatever it is.
I was going to ask you too now with Perfect Game, and nothing against them or Prospect, whatever's out there now. I don't even know anymore.
Yeah.
But
PBR is a big one.
Right. I was going to ask, with everything that's out there now, and I mean, parents have to be nowadays just so confused, and it must be easy to really take their money. And look, I'm all for capitalism. So be it. If people want to give you your money for teaching a certain thing or saying they can play here, whatever, do what you got to do. But how do you decipher through a good travel ball program through all the other shit that goes on with travel ball in today's game?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, going back to what I said earlier, I think the first thing that you do is ask the kid, did he have fun? Like, did he like the coach? Did he like what he was teaching? What did he teach?
Yeah.
What did he tell you to do? If he didn't tell you anything and you want to be a college level player one day, that's probably not the program for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to play and have fun and you want to be with your buddies, and I ask you, hey, what did you learn today? And you say, oh, I didn't really learn anything. We just had batting practice and we hit. Then that's probably a good place for you. Like, did you have fun? Yeah. Did you learn anything? No, not really, but I had fun, and I don't want to play college, but if you have a kid who wants to be a college level player, that's probably not a good place for him. Because again, he's not going to achieve that goal that I've talked about earlier, which is, will he get in front of his high school varsity coach, and will he ask him to carry out a task, and then will he be able to do it and do it in the manner that is asked to be done? If the answer to that question is no, you're in the wrong program.
Yeah.
So that's the way that I would look at it, is just, hey, first of all, did he enjoy the practice? Did he enjoy the training? And then if he did, what did he take from the practice? What did he take from the training? If he didn't take anything, then we either need to look at his goals and say, wait, do you really want to become a college player? Do you really want to play on varsity as a sophomore or freshman? Because if you do, you probably should lock in at practice. That would be the first thing that I would do as a parent. Yeah. Now, if he comes back and goes, hey, man, I was locked in and I was listening, coach just didn't really coach me on anything. He didn't tell me anything. Then you go, okay, we probably need to find a new place for you, because I want you to get in front of that varsity coach. And when coach says, hey, man, we got to do this, this, and this, and you go, boom, got it. I'm on it. I'm on it, coach. And, that's where we want our guys to get. So that's the way that I would sift through, the junk is just, again, always try to find the place. Your kids are going to come back. You want them to want to come back the next day.
Yeah.
In anything you do, whether it's a travel team, whether it's a training, whether it's hitting instruction, catching instruction, weightlifting, whatever it is, I think the number one question you got to ask yourself is, do I want to come back the next day? Am I hungry for the next session? And if I'm not hungry for the next session, then you're probably in the wrong place.
Well, do you subscribe to the theory of your kid getting out there and playing, just getting as many reps as you can, playing as whatever travel ball team is out there to still try to get better? And even though they still want to get to college, they may want to go pro, whatever. I mean, that's
not at all.
That's a crapshoot. But do you think maybe you subscribe to the theory of, hey, just get out there and play, get as many reps as you can, play as many games as you can?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think one of the biggest things that we're missing, and this is actually happening on more than just a baseball level, is I believe that there is just as much, if not more, value to having a training season than there is on having your actual season, whatever that is, your spring season, your summer season. And I think that's the biggest gap that players and parents are missing, is there is no transition from the game, the showcase, and then preparing for the game or the showcase.
Yeah.
And there needs to be defined gaps in time where the game is your training, where the competition is your training. Where you, whether that's lifting or working on your swing or going through your arm care and getting yourself stronger or whatever. More athletes need that time And I'm talking very high level players, especially here in Arizona. We just play, man. It's really bad. And they're always chasing the next tournament, the next thing. I think I'm going to shut it down. And then somebody asks me to play it. And I go play again. Then I go play again. And then they go, oh yeah, coach, I took some time off, and it's like 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And it's, if that's going to be your training season, is going to be 3 weeks, then that's what you're going to get out of your actual performance season. Mm-hmm. It's going to show up at some point. And my hope is that it doesn't show up via injury. Mm-hmm. That's the most likely outcome, is you're going to get yourself injured. But that's the best case, or that's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is that you just don't play that well. Mm-hmm. That you're the same player. The best case scenario is that you're the same player when you approach that training season, as you approach your actual performance season. So yeah, I don't subscribe. I think players play way too much, and I've been on that, standing on that stool for a very long time. When I first got into this, and I actually lived in Des Moines, Iowa, where we had to shut down because the snow was 5 inches thick.
Yeah.
And even when I was there, I thought we played too much, because once we started playing, it was like, they've been shut down for so long.
Race to the finish, right?
So hungry. Yeah. It's just like, well, now we can play every day. We got to try to get 90 games in 60 days, mm-hmm. because there's going to be, there's no snow on the ground. And so even when I was there, I felt like the players were playing too much. And even I made the mistake with my own son. We had 1 year that he played way too much. And I just got caught up in, well, he's having fun. And I used my own formula, and I used it against myself. He's having fun. He's learning. He's growing. So we just kept playing, and everyone that would ask him to play, we just continued to play. And when I look back at that, I realized that was a mistake. There was a time that we should have shut him down and moved on to the next thing. And we learned from that experience, and we've grown from that. So yeah, it's pretty frustrating. It's a big thing that we now have to fight, especially, like I said, once I moved to Arizona, I now realize, man, my competition with the tournaments that are here, to get parents convinced to not play for a couple months, maybe 2 to 3 months. It's not an easy battle to fight. That's for sure.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Final segment. I need to know, since this is for the most part a baseball hitting podcast, what are your keys to successful hitting?
My keys,
yes,
to successful hitting, I would probably say, number one, just don't miss the fastball.
Yeah.
Just don't miss the hunt the one that's going straight. Not the one that's moving and breaking and doing all types of crazy things and the speed that we don't know. Hunt one speed in one spot, and and go from there. And I would say, that's probably it for me, is just don't miss don't miss the fast one.
How about mechanically?
Figure out how to hit that one. Mechanically, that's even that word just kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, just because it makes me worry about what the definition of sort of mechanics, or technique, and blah blah blah. It's so convoluted, right? Like what you think mechanics, I might think is something else.
Yeah.
And I always worry about guys thinking or playing the game, playing the game in their head, in their own head. So once we get to that point, I don't want guys, thinking. I don't want that. There is no mechanic that I think gives them any success. I think it's important for us as hitting instructors to know that literally there is no two bodies that are the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if I only can teach one mechanic or two mechanics or three mechanics, but I work with 100 guys, then I'm missing 90% of the guys that I'm working with. Okay. Mm-hmm. So mechanics are a very funky thing that it's so individualized, technique and mechanic. And this goes for both hitting and running and change of direction and athleticism and jumping. The way that KD jumps is going to be different than the way that LeBron jumps. And if I try to teach you the LeBron jump, I may get you hurt 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now. If I try to teach you the KD jump, I may maximize your potential and you might jump 45 inches tomorrow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's where we come in as instructors, is we have to know our craft so well. Mm-hmm. And we have to know, and we have to have all of these tools and then know how they fit with each individual person. Mm-hmm. So I don't believe that there is one specific mechanic that's key to hitting. I used to definitely think that, but as I've worked with so many guys over time, I've realized that the thing that I think is the holy grail of hitting, tomorrow I work with a different guy and it's the one thing that makes him the worst hitter on the planet.
Yeah.
And if I try to teach that guy that thing, I just lost him money. Mm-hmm. And I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I care too much about my guys that I can teach them one mechanic. Mm-hmm. And so I don't believe that there really is, one mechanic or one key to hitting. I think more than anything, it's like, what do you do to find the barrel? And man, once guys find barrels, it's just like lock that in, and then let's just repeat that. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. And some guys, man, it's not pretty. It's not what we wanted. But for me, I'm looking for athleticism. I would say probably if you were to tie me down on one sort of mechanic that works, it would be, I want my guy to be in a position when he lands that he feels he's going to absolutely murder the baseball. Mm-hmm. And whatever it takes to get to that point, that's your mechanic. Like, that's the most important mechanic you have, is that when you get to foot plant, you can go. Yeah. There is no, but I also need to do this. Right. And I also need to do that. And I also, if I'm chewing gum and then if I turn my head this way, then I can do it. It's like, no. When that foot gets down, can you go? And if you can go and you can find the barrel, then we'll figure the rest of it out as we go. Yeah. We'll give you the special gum and we'll give you the special helmet that makes you go, whatever it is. But like, the first thing we got to do is we got to get you in a position when you land that you feel like I want you to feel like you're Bo Jackson. I want you to feel like you're Deion Sanders. I want you to feel like you're LeBron James. When you get in that box, you have to get in a position, body position that makes you feel that way. And for every guy that I've ever worked with, that's slightly different. It's a very small thing, but it's just a slight different thing.
Well, you added a lot of insight this week to the show. We do appreciate you filling in for Ep. Really quick before we go, what's going on at 3D Sports Performance? Anything upcoming that people should know about? What would you like to plug?
No, we're gearing up for the fall, and the fall's going to be pretty crazy. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I will say this, probably the biggest thing that we've got going. Last year we had I guess you call it a draft house. We had a bunch of guys move down here. Most of them were from the Northwest area. They were 2021 possible draftees. A bunch of those guys did get drafted. They all moved here to Arizona in the spring. Baseball America did a big article on them in the opening day magazine, which was incredible to be featured in that, to have our little group featured in that was a really cool deal. And we're going to do that again for the 2022 draft picks and have that draft house for probably 60 days or somewhere, probably 45 days, so probably six to 8 weeks. And that's the big thing that we're kind of gearing up for here in the fall, that I'm really excited about where it goes, because our guys were playing in front of somewhere between 50 and 120 scouts all spring. Yeah. It was really, really cool. It was a great experience, and I'm really looking forward to it growing, because the scouts have been hitting me up all summer. And when they do come to our games this summer, they've been saying, wow, will you please do that again? I mean, guys have essentially been begging me, like, that was a really cool experience.
Yeah.
It was we made their jobs very easy
Mm-hmm.
because they could go to one place. They knew where all those guys were, and all of our guys were draftable guys. We had, they all were 2021s that were, they were all very, very good players. It wasn't like they were fringe draftable guys. Every one of those guys were, potential draftees and the top 100. I think we had 4 to 6 of them were top 100 guys. In terms of high school. Where can
we find you on social media and whatnot?
3D Sports Performance is on Instagram, and then 3D Robinson is my Twitter, and then we are 3dsports.com is the website that needs an upgrade. I'm not real big on, I love coaching.
Yeah.
So I try to be good on social media. I'm better than some, but I'm not as good as I would like to be. Mm-hmm. But I always sacrifice being good on social media to be a great coach. So, but those are good places to find me. 3D Sports, 3D Sports Performance on Instagram, 3D Robinson on Twitter, and we are 3D Sports on the internet, on the interwebs.
You're a great coach, great speaker. Next week, Ep will be back and we'll be discussing how to deal with failure. I'm sure, obviously, you've dealt with that in your career, college, collegiate, professionally. Ep and I will talk about that next week. Plus, we have a couple of mechanical breakdown series coming up later on in the month as well. Dominic Robinson of 3D Sports Performance. Again, thank you very much for being our guest co-host today. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we end the podcast? Because you gave us a lot of great insight today.
No, man. I want to thank you guys for having me, and I hope I can come back. Maybe we could make this a 3-headed monster here, because I'd love to get on and get Jake a hard time. Like I said, we've known each other for a really long time, and I got some dirt on him. So we both do. I'd love to let the guys know some of the old stuff, the old Jake stuff that's changed over the years. He's grown just like all of us. So I'd love to come back anytime, man. This was awesome.
All right, Dominic, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will talk to you next week. Take care.